Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Basic Binges, part of Nom Talk Network. On this show, we review popular shows while eating and drinking our favorite binge-worthy foods and snacks. If I could speak, I'm just so excited for tonight. I am your host, Erric Ramirez, and right now I am enjoying some lovely, lovely leftover Applebee's. They have a new chicken sandwich, and it's delicious. Um, so I'm drinking lemon ice truly because it is hot out there and this is nice and cool. Plus, I also have water because hydration is important. Um, but let me introduce you to our guests that we have tonight. JP and Kyle, thank you so much for being here. JP, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody out there and what are you snacking and drinking on tonight?
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm JP Rapozo. I am a writer, director, and actor based here in Hollywood, California. Tonight, I decided to go pretty simple, seeing how the last episode was on. I had a whole, charcuterie board. So tonight, I just went ahead and went with a cheeseburger and french fries. Because I'm on antibiotics, I have my water, and I also have my Dr. Pepper. Yay!
Nice, very nice. Well, yeah, you can't really top what you did the previous episode because that was a
Right.
lot. Thank you so much for being here. And Kyle, thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself and what are you snacking and drinking on tonight?
How's it going, everybody? I'm Kyle. I am a online content creator, blogger, and TikToker. Tonight's meal consists of soup dumplings, which have been my latest obsession. I love soup dumplings. So I have soup dumplings. I have a side of fish, and then I was bad and I didn't get any water, which I should have because it is also hot where I am, but I do have my Coca-Cola because Coca-Cola is just as hydrating occasionally, but except I really don't drink Coca-Cola when it's super hot out.
There's water in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
Well, thank you for being here. And before we start and what we're doing tonight, I do want to say congratulations, Kyle, on making it to 10 years at the Disney, the Mouse. And it's perfect
Yay.
because we are talking about a new Mouse show. So thank you so much for your dedication to that. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations.
Congrats.
But back to what we're gonna do today. Like I said, Disney Plus, Disney, they just celebrated. But we are talking about the last two episodes of Doctor Who called The Legend of Ruby Sunday and The Empire of Death on Disney Plus. Before we forget, I do want to let you know that we are still funding for the Trevor Project, which is a great cause. Please be sure to check that out. Also, we still have merchandise. Go ahead and type in the chat and you can check all of that out, which is very, very cool. So before we get into these episodes really quickly, I do want to just based off of them this whole entire season, because this is a two-parter. What were your guys' thoughts on the season? Where did you think it was going to go? What did you hope? We'll start with you on this one, Kyle.
So I'm of the mind that whenever you're talking about Doctor Who, it has to kind of British shows have two layers. It's like swimming in the ocean, okay? So they've got two layers, and the top layer is very superficial, and then the bottom layer, and this is what makes British writing great, is like Game of Thrones level twists and turns, kind of stuff that you would normally see on an HBO like show with lots and lots of lots and lots of money, but it's BBC, so it's public access. So it's really good writing. And I expect whenever I hear Doctor Who finale, I expect twists, I expect little things on both levels. I expect to be able to be carried along by the top and then suddenly a riptide will pull me under to the lower level and I'll just be like, "Oh, I have to think about it." Like the finale for 10, the the Daleks Take New York or Daleks Take New Manhattan. I remember that one. And then the Weeping Angels.
No.
Everything with the Weeping Angels, everything vaguely connected to the Weeping Angels. Just a sense of palpable dread and interest. And this, yeah, that's what I expect.
Okay, that's what you expect. We'll get discussing that in a second. JP, I know you've missed a couple of episodes of this season. Minus these last two, which we're about to talk about, What were your expectations and what did you want?
So I'm getting back into the Hooniverse, what do we want to call it? I could not get into, as discussed previously, I could not get into Jodie Foster's Doctor. I just couldn't. I tried. I wanted to like her. But because of Jinx Monsoon in this season, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it another try here. Like we have one of my favorite drag queens from America here. Let's give it another try. And I did. I did get caught up on all of the episodes except for two, the ones that came after Jinx Monsoon. But I started off this season with Dot and Bubble. And that episode was phenomenal. And it got me, it literally like hooked me right back into Doctor Who. And then the following episode was just insane as well. It was really, really great. With the kiss with Jonathan Groff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really dedicated to this season. I was really, really invested. And then over the course of the past week, I went back and I started it from the very beginning. It definitely reached its peak on those two episodes, and we'll just leave it at that. I thought there were too many. There's too many. They left too many untied ends on this one. The stuff that I was actually invested in didn't go anywhere, but we'll discuss that in a bit. But
Yep.
yeah, I had better expectations for this season, and honestly, after going back and watching everything, I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, for me with this season, as everybody knows, because we've been talking about it, first couple of episodes, like I said, were for me felt like Doctor Who for dummies. And I was not happy. I wasn't happy with Ruby. Kind of really wasn't happy with Nshuti either. And then for me, I mean, I love the Jinx Monsoon episode, much like you, because she is my favorite drag queen in America. But then it got to 73 yards where he really wasn't into it. And then we went to the Dot and Bubble and things started to build and get better for me. So that's what I hoped for, and that it would just keep building, because I was starting to like Nshuti, I was liking Ruby, like I thought it was going to be untouchable. And then let's discuss, guys. So first episode number 7 is called The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Up to this point, the Doctor and her have been gallivanting around the world. We've been to the Dot and the Bubble. We've been to the 60s. We've been to Earth, everything like that, space babies. And they're trying to find Ruby's mother. Through this entire time, as I've brought up occasionally, played by the wonderful, wonderful Susan Twist, we've seen all of these people behind me pop up. All the same face, different people, but they don't know who she is. So at the beginning of the episode, the Doctor flies into Unit, and we see some recurring characters as Raheem the Guard and Rose Noble. I love her. And Kate Lethbridge Stewart is back. And the Doctor brings up that, hey, we've traveled all of these worlds, and this woman keeps popping up, and I need your help finding out who she is. Also, on the opposite side of it, there's somebody who we know, but we don't know who her parents is, or her mother is, and we need to find that out, because we need to find out who she is, which they're talking about Ruby. As soon as the Doctor brings up this lovely woman behind me, Kate brings up that brings her up automatically, and they know her as Susan Triad. She is a genius of modern technology of S Triad. And as they're looking and discussing about it, because she's coming out with this big announcement, the Doctor looks at it and realizes that S Triad is an anagram for TARDIS. So we think. At this point, what the unit has done is they put Mel, the former companion, which we've seen in the Christmas specials, to work for her, to see if there's anything wrong, if she's evil, what's going on. And come to find out, she's kind of a really nice lady. She will give you the shirt off her back, and she's just trying to better the lives of people. But there's still something off. So they kind of put a pin in that, and the Doctor introduces Ruby, his new companion, to Unit, and says that she was a foundling, and they don't really know where she comes from, and they said where she was on the church on Ruby Road. And they're like, well, do you have CCTV footage? Because there's some on that block. She's like, yes, we have the tape, but it's so distorted and everything like that. We can't really see anything. And a new character who's 13 years old says that they have the technology to clean it up. So they're tasked to go to Ruby's house and get this tape. They get there, Rose and Ruby get there, and Carla, Ruby's adopted mother, says, well, if you're going to try to find your mother and it's important, it's time for me to be important and come and help you and do this. So she leaves with Ruby, and they get Mrs. Flood from downstairs, who during the church on Ruby Road broke the fourth wall and said, what, have you never seen a TARDIS? So all of us have had questions about Mrs. Flood. But they get her to watch the grandmother, Cherry Sunday, which is a great, great name. And they leave. And automatically, Cherry is like, hey, can you make me a cup of tea? And we see a kind of different side to Mrs. Flood. Mrs. Flood says no, and then kind of starts talking about, I had so many plans, like, your creator, give him this message, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of off. So we skip and we go back to Unit. Unit, which they're not supposed to have because the doctor told them no, but it's Unit and it's Kate. They have a thing called a time window. A time window will recreate a set time based off of a memory of anything. They saw the signing of the Declaration of Independence, kind of. It's kind of wonky, but with the doctor and Ruby there, and with everything that's been happening with the song and the snow, she has a big connection. So they put her in this time window with the doctor, and that night on the 25th of Christmas, or the 24th on Christmas, comes up. We see this woman dropping Ruby off at the church and walking away. We see the doctor arriving, and then we see this mysterious woman who we can't see her face still in this image, points towards the TARDIS. And they're kind of weird things, but she just points towards the TARDIS. So a colonel named Chidozi goes to investigate what's going on behind the TARDIS because you can't see it. And then all of a sudden the shadow ends up coming out of the TARDIS and it's making this noise, which we've heard before in the Christmas special when they were on the spaceship, when the doctor was examining it and the spaceship kind of ran away, or and the TARDIS ran away. We heard that noise before. But the shadow consumes the TARDIS and then blows up the time window. And we see Colonel Chidozi kind of just dead on the ground, turned into sand, which none of them know what's going on. Kate obviously jumps up and says, hey, everybody here now, check this out, what's going on? The doctor then in turn turns to Mel and says, hey, we need to go meet Susan. So she takes the doctor over to S Triad Technology, where she's about to make this big, big speech. And at this point, he's kind of thinking that it's his granddaughter who he used to travel with as companions, because like name Susan. But he has to meet her to find out. When they get there, the doctor kind of has a temper tantrum kind of thing. And Mel pretty much tells him to suck it up. You need to save the world. Come on. So she takes him to meet Susan Triad. Upon meeting her, he shakes her hand and he asks, do you recognize me? Have we met? She says no. And he doesn't feel it either. But when he's walking away, she mentions that she doesn't get much sleep because of her dreams. Then the doctor calls out the different times that he's seen her face, which start to frighten her, from being the nurse in Boom and being the mother in The Dot in the Bubble and the hitchhiker. Well, he didn't bring up the hitchhiker because he doesn't remember that. But he scares her. So when she goes to go make her live telecast to the public, she starts changing her lines. And at the same time that she starts the broadcast, the TARDIS, which is still at Unit, is being analyzed, and they realize that the shadow is still around the TARDIS. When she starts her podcast or her casting, her lines start to change, and she starts kind of going mad. And she's like, this man told me, and I've been someone with metal eyes, with horns, or nurse. And she starts breaking down. And then we realize that Harriet, who we meet earlier, Harriet Arbinger, is possessed by whatever is surrounding the TARDIS. And she starts talking in all these riddles, the same ones that Susan is doing. And Susan falls on the ground. And then Harriet, the doctor asks what her actual name is, and it's Harriet Arbinger, and they combine it, and she's an Harbinger, which was mentioned by Jinx Monsoon, the toy maker, across all of this. And then the anagram that they found out that S Triad was and TARDIS was ends up not being that, but it ends up being Sutek, the god of death, which we have ran into, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, something like that. And Susan Triad turns evil as one of his Arbingers, and we see Sutek, who's right above me, pop up and start killing people around the world. Kind of. We'll pause there before we get into the Empire of Death. What did you guys think of this first part of this two-parter? I kind of liked bits and parts of it. Like the Susan Triad part of it, because I thought the mystery was going to get bigger and better. I loved seeing Rose again and all like the companions coming back and helping, and Unit being as strong as they are. The Doctor's temper tantrum with Mel is kind of out of character for him, for me. Like, he's been angry and he's been mad, but and then this is where Shooty's like acting just kind of started or character for the Doctor just started to fall back down to what I thought at previous season. But that's my thoughts. What did you think about this first episode, Kyle?
I was really excited. I was really excited right up till the villain, because I will admit that my Doctor Who knowledge kind of extends to 9 and then some of 3, and I know about 1. So I realized, and I had to look him up, and it's like, oh, this is the 4th Doctor, and I'm like, that's the Scarf Doctor. So this is the Scarf Doctor. Okay. But everything up until the reveal of the big bad, I mean, maybe I'm spoiled because I'm used to the Daleks, or I'm used to the Weeping Angels, who are like genuinely spooky villains, or the Cybermen, and granted, all of them have like, various ties in, but except for the Weeping Angels, I don't think. But this was a completely new one, and I was just kind of like, okay, I was not expecting that. It was kind of like, yeah, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. Oh, okay. Like the end of the roller coaster, and then you think it's gonna be a huge drop, and there's just kind of a gentle float into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the Elon Musk joke, the really subtle Elon Musk joke that was in there. Because that was my first thought when I saw Susan Triad was, yes, a tech billionaire who thinks that they're going to save humanity. And I immediately didn't trust her. The makeup effects were really good. I did really like I liked that they had, this is a small thing, but I liked that they had an older actress who was willing to get like super made up and creepy. I thought that was kind of cool. So I liked that. But again, it was like, oh, build up, and skidoosh. Just gently floating in the water. And I was like, I don't know where this is going. So I was like, okay, we're waiting for another hill to climb, and I don't know where it's going.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement right to you, because it was all built up throughout the episode, and it kind of was just kind of flat. Much like I think they did a lot of Jodie Whittaker's things. It just kind of never hit. The woman who plays Susan Triad behind me, you mentioned her. I love that they got an older woman. Her name is actually Susan Twist, her actual name, which I think is lovely that she played Susan Triad and that she was a twist. What did you think of this episode, JP?
It started off with potential. I was pretty excited about it. I really was invested in the storyline of Ruby finding her mother. When they got the tape and they went into the little room that the Doctor said they weren't supposed to have, that's when they lost me. It lasted too long. It lasted way too long. it just kept going and going. And it was like the story just kept repeating itself for like, what, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's like, oh, okay, there's the lady. She walked by again. We can't see the lady. Let's freak out. Oh, there's the lady again. She walked by me. I can't see her face. Let's freak out. Oh, there's the lady again. Now she's pointing at us. We can't see her face. Let's freak out. I was over it at that point. It just kept going. I didn't need all of that, honestly. And because they did all of that, they really built up like this suspense of Ruby's mother going to be something like epic. I was expecting like a Christmas special twist kind of coming in there that's going to make me scream at the television. Like, oh my God, it's River Song. River Song's her mom.
You're expecting that whole Amy River, like,
I was expecting to see Amy and Rory again. I was expecting to see Amy and Rory. I was expecting to see somebody, some companion from the past, especially because in the season finale, these last 2 episodes, they had so many other companions in there. And I was expecting to see a companion. I wanted to see another companion. We'll get into who her mother actually is, but yeah, definitely there was a lot of build, like Kyle said. He said that it basically just flatlined, and it did flatline. We got about halfway through the episode, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what the hell is happening? I mean, I had to go to Google to figure out what was going on. You know, I found out that Susan actually isn't technically the granddaughter because Time Lords can't sexually reproduce, right? They're born in pods. Time Lords are born in pods. They don't reproduce like that. And then I also learned that, like, because I was like, oh, well, who in the hell are her parents then? Is it Amy and Rory? And then on Google, it's like, oh, it said that, like, we probably haven't even met her parents yet. We have not met Susan's parents. And so I thought this whole thing was going to be happening with Susan as well. And it's like, oh, haha, no, we tricked you. It's not the granddaughter. It's just some old lady who's possessed by Sutek. And, and I was like, oh, come on. I thought it was a cute little nod to 4. Because I do, as you know, 4 is one of my favorites, especially with the scarf. And so I thought it was really cute that they were giving like 4 a little bit of a nod. And they did bring back Sutek because of that episode with 4. But honestly, even with Sutek, all of the makeup was so great. But Sutek, honestly, I was kind of giggling. It just looked like a really bad puppet. Let's be real. It looked like a really bad, like Jim Henson reject. 99 cents per puppet.
What I was thinking he looked like was, does anybody remember the Scooby-Doo movies?
Yeah.
That's what he looked like to me, except for like dark. That's exactly what.
Yeah, and then the whole comment that the doctor makes, like, oh, that's because it was a cultural appropriation. I'm like, oh, but you're still doing it. You're still doing it with this newer version. So why are we going to make a comment of it but not change it? So yeah.
Exactly. You haven't changed it. You haven't really, you're touching base, but remember earlier on at the start of the season, you weren't with us, JP. A lot of people starting this season were like, Doctor Who is too woke because they're adding all of these things. And I'm like, Doctor Who's always done that, but also they have had problems.
You can't make this series without just a little bit of backsliding. 2 steps forward, 1 big step back. Baby steps forward, 1 big step back. I'm not gonna lie though, when you said that, I completely agreed with the Scooby-Doo analogy. Now I'm like, man, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Matthew Lillard in Doctor Who would be lit.
That would be so good. That would be so good. Could you imagine solving a case? Doctor would be in it. But before we get on to Empire Death, I do want to say there is a little fun fact about lovely Sutek above me. Gabriel Wolf, who plays Sutek right now, he is 91 years old. He actually played the original Sutek in Pyramids of Mars in 1997. So that is 49 years that he came and reprised his role for Sutek, which I think is amazing that he was able to do that. And congratulations to Davis and everybody for being like, hey, come back, do this role that you did before. I think that's really cool.
And we apologize for bad writing.
We can't apologize for bad writing. We can. It's not our fault. But let's move into Empire of Death. So at the end of the last episode, like I said, Susan is freaking out, Harriet's freaking out. And then we figure out that it's Sutek, Sutek, the god of death. So Harriet and Susan's face kind of change into this like bone mask type thing. And they summon this dust to destroy humanity and everything in its path, everybody in its path. Mel and the doctor get out of the studio as fast as they can. They have this great like chase scene or like run scene to get back to unit. Meanwhile, as they're getting back there and the dust is getting everyone, we see Cherry and Mrs. Flood are taken, and Mrs. Flood starts saying actual things like she had great plans and big plans and she's sorry, and then she turns to dust. So we still don't know what's going on with her. We see Carla heading home in a cab and she turns into dust. Very, very Infinity Wars-esque type things. Before the doctor and Mel can get back to the TARDIS, he has Ruby go to the time window again to bring something up. And we see that Sutek ends up killing everybody. Kate, the security guards, Rose turn to dust. Everybody everywhere turns to dust. As Ruby is in the time window, the doctor and Mel come back and he sends, which I thought was very weird, sends a security guard away to some vault. And I'm like, would the doctor do that? But they're there, and the doctor ends up realizing, because he walks into the TARDIS and he sees all the other TARDISes kind of combined into one tiny little room. But then he remembers, if time was a memory and the memory is if time was a memory and the memory is a time machine, what memories lie of a TARDIS? So a memory of a TARDIS like that could become a TARDIS. So he has Ruby thinking of it more and more, and they create this physical form of a TARDIS that they can potentially escape into because it starts remembering itself. Sutek ends up appearing on the opposite side of the room, kind of like wrapped around the TARDIS in this weird way. And as he's doing that, he's telling the doctor that he's always been with him since we saw him 49 years ago, because the doctor says that he threw him into the time portal. But Sutek ended up actually hanging onto the TARDIS, just like wrapped there. So every place the doctor has ever traveled, be it with Mel, or be it with Sarah Jane, or be it with Rose, or be it with Donna, or even now, everywhere he's ever traveled, Sutek has released Susan triads everywhere, just in those forms, to become his arbiters of death, which bring the sand. The doctor, Mel, and Ruby end up jumping into the TARDIS to get away from him because they realize they're not dead, and flying out into the space. At this point, the doctor has another little meltdown because he can see all of these planets dying from the dust that you see over here. All the planets are turning into that. And we really don't get more information from there. They kind of tie everything up because it's falling apart. Don't get any more information. We end up on some random planet where he talks to a lady about where she is, and she doesn't remember. There's a mention of a baby, then the baby died. All he wanted was a metal spoon. Didn't really make sense. But he put the spoon into this like pad thing, and then Ruby ends up asking a question. And she's just like, well, why aren't we dead? And it shows a picture of her mother. And then the doctor's like, oh, it's still connected to you. Ask another question. She's like, well, who is my mother? How can I get answers? Blah, blah, blah. And every time the doctor would grab this pad, it would go away. So it was all connected to Ruby. Then it showed her the guy from 64 Yards. For some reason, his name is slipping my mind right now. And it shows them.
The Welsh guy.
Yes, the Welsh guy. That she ended up not making, or helping not become prime minister. But she shows that to the doctor. And the doctor's like, oh, well, in 2054, or or 2045, they made everybody get their DNA into a system. So if we go there, we can find your mother. They end up going there with the memory of the TARDIS. They travel to the future where they hope to find the DNA record of Ruby's mother. And it's kind of like Nom Talk put it so wonderfully, a Uno or a reverse Uno. It's a trap tool or Sutek and the TARDIS to them, and the Doctor latches onto Sutek. They walk up to him, and Mal ends up dying and turning into one of the Arbingers. And Ruby walks up to him with this thing, ends up dropping it in front of him and latching him like a dog chain. And they end up using a whistle to get the TARDIS away from him, running into the TARDIS and latching it on to the TARDIS. And then the Doctor takes Sutek and drags him through the time vortex because he says if death kills death, then life will come back. So he does that. And in this, the Doctor's like, I guess since you're the Arbinger of death, I am the god of life, but you've now turned me to the god of death. And then he kills Sutek. Everybody comes back to life, and La-Di-Da is good. And as they're talking at the end of it, Unit ends up locating Ruby's mother. They figure out that she is 36 years old, or 35 years old, and had Ruby when she was 15. But the house she lived in was not a good house. So she gave her up, and they get her name. The Doctor kind of takes her, and he's showing her who she is, and then kind of tries to dissuade her from actually going to meet her, saying that there's been like 1,700 days or something like that she had time to come and look for her, and she didn't, and that she shouldn't. And then she goes anyway, orders a coffee. They meet, they cry. Her mother now meets Carla and her grandmother. Ruby leaves the Doctor, and at the end, it's kind of like a story that Mrs. Flood is telling, that Ruby's story is finished. And then she says that the Doctor's end will be tragic. And then she just kind of goes away and says goodbye to us because she broke the fourth window again. But that's the end. This episode was very disappointing for me.
Yeah.
One, because this entire season, we're trying to find out who Ruby is. Jinx Monsoon was like, she has a song deep in her heart. It snowed almost everywhere they went. Then at the end, her mother's just a regular girl or woman, and we don't find out why these things were happening. Sutek's death was nonchalant to me. I really didn't care. And there was loose ends that weren't tied up. We don't know who Mrs. Flood is. The Doctor has a little bit more trauma now, I guess, so he's going to be better for me next season, maybe, because I miss a trauma doctor. But the best thing in this is that Ruby's actually getting a happy ending and being with her family that she's been looking for all these time, something that Mel never got. So I guess it's the opposite of that. But yeah, it was just very disappointing end to the season for me. And JP, what are your thoughts on this last episode and the end of the season?
This episode was messier than a drunk queen in West Hollywood during Pride. That's all I got to say about that. No.
We know that queen. No, I'm joking.
Were we that queen one time? No, I'm kidding. No, but this episode was like the whole flood thing. I feel like maybe her story got edited out in the editing room somehow, because it seemed like there was something supposed to be going on there that was supposed to connect something. And like in the editing room, like it was like, oh, we don't care. We're just going to throw it out. But this episode, there was a lot of that in this episode. Mm-hmm. I was expecting more from Flood. Didn't get it. Let's be real. The whole thing with the mother, it was disappointing. Like I said, I wanted a companion. I wanted something. An entire season built off of trying to find her mother. And this is what we end up with. We end up with a normal 15-year-olds teen pregnancy just left at the church. That's all we get. That's all we get it. You know what I mean? And I was really disappointed because it seemed like this entire season there was a lot of music. There was a lot of dancing and singing and stuff. And then the last two episodes, we don't get anything.
I will actually stop you there really quick before I let you continue.
Yeah.
Nom Talk Network has redeemed Hydrate. So cheers, everybody. Hydrate. And JP, I am going to let you continue. But the reason I stopped you is because you said there's a lot of singing and a lot of dancing this season. Timspiration has a redeemed sing mode. So please go ahead and continue what you were saying.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, anyways, there's a lot of singing, a lot of dancing going on throughout the entire season. And then we get all the way to the end and we don't get any of it. Nothing at all. Okay, I'm gonna end with the singing right there.
No, I agree with you that there was a lot of things in this season that didn't get answered. But I also agree that a lot of these episodes in this season didn't make sense with the storyline. We had space babies, we had Boom, we had the dot in the bubble, but also in the ending of this, it didn't make sense besides Susan Triad being on any of these planets. We didn't get any information on Ruby until the end, and it was disappointing. It was lackluster. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this last episode?
Ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. This was The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi, except Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson did it better with more spectacle. Except with The Last Jedi, you had a whole universe to play with instead of just one character. Focused with the audience. Ba-da-da. Thank you. Okay, so that was the biggest thing that I took away from this particular episode. Was the thing with The Last Jedi is that anybody could be anything particularly special in regards to the Force. And while I think a lot of people really disagreed with that with Last Jedi, I did not. I really liked what they did in it. And this is not a review of that. This is just a commentary of that's how you're supposed to do it. And then I was reading an article with Davies, and Davies was like, this was my response to The Last Jedi. I was just like, so everyone can do this. And I'm like, really? No. I swear I saw that article and I was just like, this, no, what? No. But let me try and be positive. I'm reaching for positivity in life. Okay, we're reaching for positivity. So we're gonna do a compliment sandwich, something good. This was a really nice, like you said, Doctor Who for Dummies. A very good introduction to what is supposed to be the first season of the Doctor. You get something from 4, something from 15. You get kind of used to the sort of format. You get all the pieces, but you don't have anything to connect them together because, while you would normally think you'd want people to follow that line of thought, it might be a little too hard for people to follow because it's a lot of lore. So, something bad. The whole reason why you watch Doctor Who is because of the engaging plot lines that pull you in. The whole reason why is that, there's so many twists and turns and Game of Thrones-esque things that just kind of pull you under, and it's just genuinely creepy because the people who do this kind of stuff, it's a kids show. Technically, it is a kids show, but they don't come back. People don't come back from this. There are stakes. There are stakes in this. It's grim and dark, but it's really well written and very good sci-fi. But they just didn't do that with this. But something good to close it out on for me. They might do better in season 2.
One can hope.
They might do better at season 2. Hopefully. Preferably, they would do better.
That's my positive ending to that. They might do.
But yeah, no, like I was saying, like, what are your guys like? It just made no sense for them to end this way. For me, even though like I was happy that Ruby got to meet her mom and she's gonna meet her dad and she had the family and everything again. Didn't explain all of these episodes that we've seen, even like The Rogue episode was really good, very well written. Doesn't explain why they were there. Like the Doctor takes everywhere, but at least we've seen in previous seasons. That episode and this episode will mention something that we're going to see at the end. This has no connection for the previous 6 episodes, which dumbfounds me. What are your thoughts on this, JP?
It's every single episode in this entire season could have been its own season. There was just every episode nothing connected them. Every single episode could have been a different storyline in a season somewhere else that we could have explored. I feel like we were definitely cheated with these relationships. I wanted to see more of Rogue and the Doctor. I wanted to see, like, let's be real, I wanted more of a connection between Ruby and the Doctor as well. I wanted to see more connections, and every time we got a really great connection or a really great storyline or people that we were falling in love with, major props to Cherry Sunday. She was my favorite. We don't get to actually explore. Like, we don't get to explore why Cherry Sunday is bedridden. What's going on with her? Let me be invested with these characters. Let me care about these characters. I wanted to be invested with this family as much as I was invested with oh my god, Rose Tyler's mom.
Oh yeah,
like Tyler's mom and their families, like, and Donna's mom. Like, you're invested with these families, invested with these characters, and I mean, we just didn't get it with this. We did not, and I think that's what I was really missing. I was missing those old school Doctor moments where I fell in love with these characters. You know what I mean? Like, Doctor Who, it does that for us. It creates these epic, iconic characters that we just purposely fall in love with. And then what they do is, right when you're about ready to forget about them, they ring you back in with these characters that you love, where you're jumping up out of your seat screaming at the television set. And we haven't had that in the past few seasons. It was cute this season that they were trying to do this Doctor for Dummies thing, but they did too much. It was too much from pulling from the past to, like, try to explain things. I hated the sonic screwdriver, first of all. It looked like a damn TV remote. That was horrible. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we have the intelligent gloves, and then we get the intelligent rope, and then we get the whistle, and like, it's like, okay, we get it. The Doctor has gadgets. You're giving them to me a little too fast, and it seemed as if, like, maybe they didn't know how to wrap up those plot lines, and so they were just like pulling at whatever they possibly could and just throwing it at us and being like, oh, here, you'll like this. This is from the past. You're gonna love this. And we're just like, oh, why are you throwing that at me? You know?
Oh yeah. No, I completely agree with you. Before we continue, Cue Ball has redeemed Stretch, so everybody stretch. And you could probably hear my cat yelling in the background. But they also, Cue Ball also redeemed Take a Bite. So take a bite, everybody.
I'm all out.
Mime a bite.
Have a little crumb of a French fry.
No, I'm right there with you, JP. Like, in previous seasons with, like, Donna and with why am I forgetting her name? Right after Rose, right before Donna.
No.
Martha.
Martha, yeah.
You connect with Martha, and you, even though, like, you connect with their families and everything, and this wasn't it. Actually, which I didn't mention, I did mention that Carla went in the previous episode to help her. Even her contribution this episode, I felt, was stupid. Like, she's crying, Doctor. Can't you see? You can't see her face. Everybody's asking, can you see her face? And you can't. So how do you know she's crying? Yeah. And then when Sutek's steam pops up, and she's just like, I know who it is. It's the Beast. I'm like,
the Beast of what?
Carla, you haven't been anywhere involved in anything, and now you have answers that nobody wants. What are your thoughts on this relationships and all these previous episodes that don't tie into this finale whatsoever?
Do you want me to be, I can be kind or I can be cruel, Eric? Which would you like?
Be truthful.
Okay. If I'm truthfully truthful, I have to wonder if, while I can justify this as saying Doctors for Dummies introducing people to the to all of this, I have to wonder if because this occurred to me when you guys were talking about it, and it really, 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 really hurts me to say this. I have to wonder if they didn't put a lot of connection into it because they were trying to figure out how it would work with Nishuti as the Doctor. And that hurts to think about because it seems like you're gonna put a thing. I keep using metaphors with boats and water, but you're gonna put a thing on the water, you're gonna put a boat in the water, you know, you're gonna test the design of the boat, but if it sinks, you know, you didn't maybe invest as much money in the boat as you needed to, you could easily make it go away. And that really hurts because I know that they invested a lot of time and energy, and I know that all the characters are having fun, and I think it's great. I just thinking about what you guys were saying about how none of it's connected. It's either if I am kind, it's either them going, okay, well, what kind of a doctor is he? What kind of a doctor is he? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? What kind? We're testing the waters. We got a big budget. We can test the waters with real writers and everything else. And if I am cruel, I have to say, are they as invested in this experiment that they are doing as people want to believe? And that is a terrible thing to say, and it's a terrible thing to admit. But the more I think about it, the more I have to wonder, because you're absolutely correct, none of it's connected. And I want to believe it's the former, which is, they're just trying to figure out where he goes. But the unfortunate thing that I'm worried about is that it's the latter, and I guess we'll just have to wait till season 2 to see.
And no, and like, thank you for saying that, because I completely agree with you. Are they as invested in this as they should be? Initially, and when Tony was on for the Christmas specials, the 3-series special and everything like that, we kept mentioning they have that Disney money now, because I thought the specials were really good because, well, I mean, they gave me Tennant and Donna again, so like I couldn't complain. Yeah. But you could definitely see the differences in like the graphics and the story and everything like that. But that makes a good point. Are they as invested? Because now that you mentioned that, and me saying that none of these episodes are connected, and looking back at these episodes, for me, they have pulled bits and pieces from episodes throughout all the other Doctors and combined them, because they're like, oh, people like that. People like the idea of that. People like, let's just put it in this episode and see what it lands on. Which is unfortunate for Nishuti, because for me, he's not my favorite at all. Also, I don't think that man can cry to save his life. He can't act cry at all. Ruby can. Millie Gibson, very good at it. But it's just problematic for me. JP?
The only, like, if you really go back and think about this right now, I don't know who in the heck they hired to be the writers for this season, but clearly they all have daddy issues, because let's be real, there was so much about like babies being lost and dead, and I'm like, okay, like searching for moms and dads. You have, by the way, shout out to the actress that plays Queen Charlotte. I was actually very excited when she showed up in Space Babies. I was like, Queen Charlotte. But so I did feel like there was a lot of like family trauma going on this season, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that seems like that was the only through line for the entire season. Let's be honest, because like we've mentioned, everything else was just kind of pulled from here and there and like kind of mishmashed together. And like Kyle, like he had said, they're just trying to see what's going to work, what's going to stick to the wall. And it, like I said in the previous episodes of Binge Watch with Doctor Who, it seems as if they're trying to rebrand the Doctor for a new generation.
Oh,
however,
they are.
This is not the way to go about it. This is just extremely confusing.
If you want to sell the grand, I might be overstepping, but if you want to sell Nishuti as the Doctor, you gotta insert him in to the lore. Like, he's got to be in there, and he's got to be like, you got to name drop Rose, you got to name drop Amy, you got to name drop Christopher Eccleston, you got to name drop like everybody, and while you're at it, name drop the person who created the show and the BBC and whatever. Like, you got to put everybody in there, and you got to go, this dude is here. He is not going anywhere. This is our guy. He is in the lore. Fucking deal with it. And the fact that they didn't immediately do that, and they were very tepid, like, creeping forward a little bit and not putting him in the spaces where he could really shine was just, looking back on it, when you said that, I was just like, that's, you're not putting your money behind the horse you picked.
Correct.
You're not doing that. And it's
it's unfortunate. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Oh, go ahead, JP.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is they were throwing so much stuff at us from previous seasons, previous Doctors. We got no backstory for this new Doctor. I'm not invested. I don't know where he's been, what he's done, what has he experienced, because let's be real, this entire season, Ruby was the one navigating the TARDIS. She was choosing where they wanted to go. The Doctor had nothing to do with it. Normally the Doctor's like, oh, hey, come with me, I'm going to go show you something. And it's,
let me show you this planet. Like,
yeah, and you learn about the Doctor, you get invested with the Doctor because of those type of episodes. But this season, Ruby was choosing where she wanted to go. I mean, for God's sake, they went back and saw the Beatles, Abbey Road. You know what I mean? Like, when that happened, I was like, okay, this is Jinx's episode. Okie dokie.
But I mean, and even with that, I'm going to jump into the chat really quickly before we continue this. Besides them giving us things to do like sing, sorry, JP. Timspiration says, I think the biggest thing, JP, they don't supply enough to be invested in. It's very bite-sized, okay, next meal type thing. And then he laughed and said, Disney also said take a bite, but they didn't give us a full meal with what they gave us for this season. Then Timspiration also says they can't decide if they are invested or if Disney is invested or they just want the rights, because Disney is kind of a ravenous monster. At this point, I kind of have to agree. Did Disney just buy Doctor Who because there are a lot of Whovians in the universe and they want a slice of that pie? And then they got it and they did not know what to do with it. Your thoughts on this, Kyle? I know you celebrated 10 years and you can't really mean talking about thoughts.
I shall say I shall say as someone who, as a fan, speaking not for the brand or the company, I shall say that beneath the corporate exterior of the mouse are a lot of nerds. A lot of nerds who are well and truly extremely passionate about creativity and about sci-fi and fantasy and magic and wonder and joy and create and storytelling above all. So I am not surprised that Disney would purchase the rights to anything if they found and if they saw an opportunity for good storytelling, because regardless of what people might think about the company's decisions, any theme parks decisions, any entertainment industry's decisions, if you like storytelling in any capacity, sometimes you turn into a little baby and you grab as many toys as you can, and then you take them away and you sit them in your room and you play with them. And sometimes Disney is a baby that grabs too many toys.
Yes, I agree. JP, thoughts on this?
Honestly, as a writer, I know what's going on in the industry right now, where Netflix and Hulu and Disney, where they're all concerned, they're literally getting rid of the writers' room. So writers are not going to a room anymore and working full time on these scripts together. What they're doing is they're bringing in people one by one, having them work on these scripts, and then they'll come in for one episode and they're gone for the next. You know what I mean? There's no team. And if that's what's been happening with Doctor Who this season, it's very, very apparent. And that's actually very scary for the shows that we love all on any type of streaming service or network. If this is the kind of writing we're going to get because of these decisions that they're making not to have a writer's room anymore, I feel like we're going to see more of this. It's complete discombobulated, disconnected. They don't have any clue who we are as Whovians. They may do their research or whatever, but get a real Whovian in there. Get all of us real Whovians in there in a writer's room and have us just come up with like things to do and things to say and like ideas, because I think when you care about something and you know something so well, like we all do. I mean, we're obsessed with the show. Those of us who are obsessed with the show, we are obsessed with the show. We know every word almost. Get us in the room and have us do it. We are writers. We are creators. Like Kyle said, we are nerds by nature. Get us in the room, have us fix it. Just don't hire these people, just hire them, come in, write this, because this is possibly what's going to happen.
Yep, I agree. Kyle?
Worth noting, because JP is 100% correct, I also read an interview with Kate Herron, who wrote the Rogue episode, which is one of the episodes that we agree is great. And she compared it to when she was a kid writing Doctor Who fan fiction.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're a nerd, when you know the property, it really does out. Well, I have to wonder if because just based on what I've observed as a fan of Hollywood in general, I have noticed that there is with people, I think that there's been a real shift in that people who have the rights to things don't want people to be wholly invested for some reason, because I think they're afraid that they're going to say no, that they're going to go, well, no, X, Y, and Z would never do this. They don't want people who are particularly passionate about a project. They want someone who can turn something around quickly for money. And that's
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and I think that that's just based on what I've observed, is that they want somebody who can turn around something very, very quickly for money, and they don't want someone who's going to give them a lot of pushback as far as they don't want someone who can give them a lot of pushback. They want someone who will be like, oh, the Doctor, there's going to be a Dalek. They don't want someone who's going to go, here's the history of the Daleks, and here's how they connected to the third Doctor and the fourth Doctor, and we're going to get X, Y, and Z in, and it's going to be really expensive, and they're going to be like, no, we don't want any of that. And instead they want somebody who's going to be in, okay, here's what we got special effects, there's an evil AI, there's gayness, we had a black Doctor for the people, we got a girl, it's going to be great, we're going to shoot it. This script is totally not generative AI bullshit, here, take it. Yeah, totally did not push this in on my lunch break, and you just put the money in my account. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want. They don't want the other thing.
Yeah. And some of this season, like I said, the first couple of episodes, like not the first one, Ruby Road. I did like Ruby Road. But even the Jinx episode, I don't think was very well written. She acted it very well, but it was not well written. I don't want anybody out there to think that I think it's a great episode. I love it because of Jinx. Like the ones that I say I do like are Rogue, are 73 Yards, because they are written by different people. Unfortunately, these last two episodes that we do not like are written by the man himself, Russell T. Davies.
Yeah.
My questioning is what is he thinking? Because he did so well before, but what is he thinking? But guys, we are running out of time. So I want to get your guys' final thoughts on this season. Where do you hope that this will go? What do you hope will change? And what do you think that Disney and Doctor Who will do for the future of Doctor Who? We'll start with you on this one, JP.
Well, we're obviously getting a new companion. I don't think they're going to do it, but it would be nice to see Rogue become the companion, because I think we're going to be fully invested with that because of the episode. With that said, like I said, I think the highlights of this season were definitely Dot Bubble and Rogue. Those are my two favorites. The Jinx episode, I'm going to agree with you 110%. It was not well written. It was kind of all over the place as well. I mean, I don't know why we needed the Beatles. Let's be real. We didn't need to see all the Beatles. And then, I mean, as much as I've been complaining and like kind of dissing on it, it's just because I fully love this show. I've been watching it like for a decade. And it's just, it was disappointing, but it did have its good moments. And I do like that they are showing a lot more diversity. I just think that if you're going to go with the diversity and you're going to be quote unquote woke, you need to go for it. Go for the gay storyline. Go for the racist comments. Go for all of it. All of these things. If you're going to go for it, go for it. Balls to the wall. fully commit and go for it. Don't keep pulling punches, because I think that was the downfall of this entire season. They would punch and they're pulling their punches. They're not punching fully, you know? And you can't do that. If you're going to be brave and you're going to be rebranding this entire series of these doctors that we know, you're going to have to like just go for it. And I think you need to start be smart about what they're going to be pulling from the past. Give us the Weeping Angels, give us the Daleks, give us those classic monsters that we all love, because we're going to scream. We're going to be there. I mean, we got Sutek. I had to Google who in the heck that was. We haven't seen him for 50 years. It's cool and everything that we got to see him again, but I'm not invested with that. I'm not invested with all these gadgets that they gave him this season. Like, it was too much where it shouldn't have been too much. What they could have given us was more content, more of an emotional investment with these characters. I wanted to see that. So I'm hoping that season 2, with all of this chaos going on in season 1, with it not really connecting, I'm hoping they're going to bring it together in season 2, and it's going to make sense. For Pete's sake, just make it make sense. Make the whole flood thing be like, oh, the Doctor ends in tragedy. Okay, why? Okay, cool. Good for you. You're going to try to hook us into season 2, but if you do to us what you did in this season, it might be another Jodie Whittaker. Might be a flop, a complete Doctor flop.
Yeah. And I agree. I agree with you. I hope they make it make sense, have a through line. I will unfortunately break the news to you now, JP. Jonathan Groff is not going to be the companion. The new companion's name is Virata Sethu. She's already They've already finished season 2, so we just have to wait for it. Hopefully, I am hoping Mrs. Flood comes in a Christmas special and we figure out what the hell that means. But a through line for me would be great, and just like cleaning up the edges, because now, like I've been saying, Doctor Who for Dummies, they got it, they get the point. Now give us what all the other doctors have been giving us, pushing it, because none of them were afraid. Just go for it. Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Doctor was so afraid this season. We've never seen a Doctor this afraid of so many villains ever. Like, he was afraid of, like, what, 3 or 4 of them? And it's like, why is this Doctor so afraid of everybody?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tim Inspiration actually pointed that out earlier, that the Doctor, because they had just started the Doctor, that he wasn't getting that the Doctor was in control of anything, that Ruby was. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what they're giving. But Kyle, what are your final thoughts on this entire season? Where do you want it to go? What do you hope for?
Put this Doctor in the center of the lore. Give him a thorough through line, not just to the Who that I don't remember, not just to the Who that like the die hard Whovians remember. Put him in the lore of the modern lore. Have him have a wild fling with Bad Wolf Rose. Have Jonathan Groff show up with Jack Harkness. Have something, have 500 different things but I need to see him. What I want for next season, I need to see him in the center of the lore. I need a through line that connects him to something big, to Amy, to Rose, to Jodie, to I don't even care what, but like just connect him to something really, really impactful and positive, and have it be deep, have it be deep, and have it be like, give me the Amy Rose, give me the 11 era writing. Give me some of the 12 with 11 era writing. Like, me the 11 era writing with a little bit of sprinkle of 12 on top and like an undercurrent of 9. Yeah, that's my biggest thing that I want next season, is put him right in the middle of the lore. Put him with a Dalek. That'll be it. Put him with a Dalek. I want him to meet a Dalek. But other than that, the season was there. It happened. I had some fun talking to you guys about it.
It was great.
Yeah, that was the best part. And Dot and Bubble, 73 yards was genuinely chilling, and I'm really sad that hasn't paid off. Actually, like, that was really good. And yeah. Dot and Bubble hit. It went there.
Oh yeah. Funny enough, Ncuti did an interview, and he said he is very disappointed that the Daleks were not there, because he wants to fight the Daleks. But like you mentioned, with 11, they did this with 11. They started a brand new thing. They weren't mentioning Rose or Martha or anything, and they did it successfully. Matt Smith didn't even watch any previous Doctor Who, and he was the Doctor. So I don't know what they're doing here. I hope it gets better. We can only hope that it gets better. But I do want to give you guys a little bit of positive before we end this. So the jukebox that is in the TARDIS is a working jukebox. If anybody walks up to it and pushes 010, it plays the Doctor Who theme song across the TARDIS on set, which is very wonderful because Ncuti found out about that the last day of shooting. So I think that's a pretty cool vibe that they did. But I do want to say thank you guys for joining me this season 1 of Disney Plus's Doctor Who. It has been a wild ride. We have our feelings. We've had some good, we've had some bad. Obviously, the end was a little disappointing, but we are still Whovians and we still will watch it. I want to thank you guys for being here, Kyle and JP. Kyle, let everybody know out there where they can find you.
So you can find me on TikTok at Caroline, CAROLING _cosplay, COSPLAY. Mostly for mascot horror related unboxings and just unboxings and horror in general. You can also find me on Instagram at Kyle Poddig Arts, KYLEPODDIG Arts. And both of those things are things I'm trying to grow for my platform. So
nice. Well, thank you so much for being here. And again, congratulations. JP, where can they find you out there?
Alrighty, you can find me across all social media networks at JP Rapozo, RAPOZO, and that's where you can get me. Yay! I'm pretty simple.
Nice. Well, thank you. And thank you all out there for tuning into this wild ride. Be sure to join our Discord to keep this conversation going, as well as following all of our platforms at Nom Talk Network. I'm your host, Erric Ramirez, and you can find me on all platforms at Heartless7. That's HARTL, the number 3 SS7, and here on Nom Talk Network, hosting several times a week, probably. But I'm always here as well. But tune in next time, which will be on Friday, where we will be talking about the 1989 Batman, which will be super exciting. But until Friday, everybody out there, have a nomorific day. Bye.
Bye.